articles. I saw them with the eyes of a Japanese American from Hawaii, from the perspective of an ethnic minority like most of you here today. And so I saw things in the record that were perhaps invisible to those who made the original record. In the spirit of sharing and aloha, I want to talk with you today about the invisible record. That invisible record tells me that many of the gifts of the Hawaiian pioneers of Iosepa were unnoticed. Let me mention two of these invisible gifts because, my brothers and sisters, the church is in desperate need of these gifts today. And now perhaps it's the hour for the gifts of Polynesia to be offered anew to the global church. So today I'd like to talk about the invisible gifts of Iosepa. We could mention many of them, but I want to concentrate on two. The first of these invisible gifts is to affirm the rights and the rightness and the righteousness of ethnic diversity. The second gift is for gifts of blindness of heart and mind that places a higher valuation on one person than on another. I'd like to begin by talking about diversity. The first of the gift of Iosepa is to affirm the rightness and the righteousness of ethnic diversity. I was delighted to see on the program that representatives from Hawaii, from Tahiti, Tonga, Samoa, New Zealand, and Fiji were to be represented in the games and the crafts and the dance instruction. For me, one of the strongest messages of Iosepa is that the Hawaiian pioneers were seen as people who needed the gifts of others, not as people who had gifts of their own to give. The Howleys who were called to be among them came willingly and helped them willingly. But their point in coming and helping was not to help the Hawaiians, but to help them change to a new way of life. Let me give you two examples. The first example is the first death in Iosepa. It was the death of Makao Pupia on September 15, 1889. In the writing, she is called an old native woman. The writer says nothing about her as a person, not even whether she was alone or whether a family came to mourn for her when she died. Instead, her death imposed another task on the person who had to find a grave for her. He had to choose a site for a cemetery. With a number of prominent elders, they located it in the northeast corner of the town site, just surveyed and occupying a prominent plateau overlooking the town fields and valleys. He said nothing about the funeral in the record, how he felt or how the people felt, or how the other Hawaiians felt, lowering the first of the many who had died into this alien soil. Now the second example involves a birth. In the manuscript that I read of the history of Iosepa, compiled by an assistant church historian, we read under the date of July 1819. It says the first child, a native, was born in July in Iosepa colony. He was blessed by President Joseph F. Smith and was given the name of Joseph. If we had on the great mission of bridge building upon which we are embarked, there will be many times we aim at a nail and hit our own thumbs instead. And there will be many times when someone carrying a timber to its proper place will brush too closely by us without seeing us, perhaps treading on our toes or even knocking us off balance. At such times, it is important that we keep our heads and our feet, that we not nurture feelings of bitterness and unhappiness. We must not pretend that such things do not hurt. They do. and the hurt can last a lifetime, but we can prevent ourselves from being wounded or crippled by learning to forgive quickly. Sometimes you may want to hit back, but to hurt the person who has hurt you. But please don't. Whatever pain you may be able to inflict will not ease the hurt in your own heart. And even more seriously, you will inflict the permanent damage upon yourself of becoming the kind of person who delights in another's suffering. How can you choose to become such a person and remain a disciple of Christ? It is possible. A wise person said, "I've learned that plotting revenge only allows the people who hurt you to hurt you longer." My husband and I had learned this lesson very quickly when we came to Utah, where discrimination about Japanese people was open and pervasive because it was close to the end of the war. I think it hurt us most to find it within the church itself, but we had to face it there as well. I saw my dear husband display Christ-like forbearance and love as he steadfastly refused to become angry or vengeful. He never wasted any energy being angry at someone who had mistreated him. He never allowed his attention to be drawn into enmity or bitterness, even when bitter things happened. He never hated the Germans whose artillery fire wounded him and almost killed him. He never resented the Americans who mistrusted Japanese soldiers during World War II. When Ed was a regional representative, we attended the first area conference in Japan. One of the regional representatives in charge of another area, that was Ed's chance to say how shabbily he had been treated, but he didn't say a word. Instead, he simply smiled and said, "Oh, we were with the saints from COVID." I was very proud of my husband. He reproached evil by his very being because he was so good. Remember that the strength to be gentle and strong and forgiving does not come from our own willpower, but from our faith in the Savior. Brothers and sisters, in conclusion, let's look at these two invisible gifts of Iosepa, gifts that the whole church needs desperately as it moves into an unprecedented area of international expansion. The first of these gifts is to affirm the rightness and the righteousness of ethnic diversity, unless we have first experienced the love of Jesus in our own hearts. In Colossians chapter 3, verses 10 to 15, Paul reminds his readers that they have been created in the image of God. Then he explains how, in that image, there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcision or uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond or free, but Christ is all and is all. In other words, their ethnic origins don't matter, being Jew or Greek. Their legal status doesn't matter, being bond or free. And their gender doesn't matter, neither male nor female. They are all absolutely equal before God. Does Haole matter? Does Tongan? Does Samoan? Does Maori? Does Hawaiian? Only to the extent that there are delightful differences among us.
Yeah. Ooh. What's going on? Come on, I've been waiting for this all day. Oh.
Touch him. Hot?
We got a little one.
No.
Just made it cook your Reebok.
Yeah. You put some?
It's warranty.
Oh. Put some?
All dominoes.
Yeah.